The high-end fashion boutique gleams under the bright, carefully placed lights, casting a warm, almost surreal glow over the pristine shelves. Everything about the store is meticulously organized. The clothes, the shoes, the handbags, all perfectly arranged as if to say, "This is the world of the elite where only the privileged belong." The floors shine with a polished gleam, the walls adorned with artwork that speaks of wealth, status, and exclusivity. The air smells faintly of expensive perfumes and polished wood. A woman in a sleek dress draped in gold and diamonds steps, in her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. She's greeted with a smile that's not just professional, it's practiced, a gesture of smooth hospitality that carries an unspoken message. Welcome, you belong here. The boutique's employees, immaculately dressed in black, appear like ghosts in the background, their every move precise as if orchestrated. As the woman wanders deeper into the boutique, the other customers, mostly well-dressed, wealthy individuals, mingle in quiet chatter, their conversations soft and polite, as if they've learned that being seen is as important as what is said. They glance at the price tags as if their wealth could make any price seem inconsequential. This is a world untouched by the daily struggles most people face. It's a world where the boundaries between wealth and exclusion are clearly defined, and everyone knows their place. The door to the boutique opens again, but this time, the sound of it swinging on its hinges carries a different weight, a stark contrast to the smooth, deliberate movements of the regular customers. Jamal Carter steps inside, his eyes wide with awe as he takes in the luxury surrounding him. He's only 14, but the fire in his eyes speaks of dreams far bigger than his modest upbringing. His clothes are clean but simple, a plain t-shirt, jeans, and sneakers, the kind that don't stand out in a crowd but still hold a quiet sense of dignity. Jamal is different from the other customers who drift through the boutique with an effortless air of entitlement. His heart races in his chest as he walks slowly, taking in each display. His fingers brush lightly against a rack of jackets, lingering, just a moment too long. He tries to appear confident, but inside, the weight of the world feels heavier with every step. This is the world he wants to be part of. The world of success, of ambition, of limitless possibility. His mother, Denise, always told him that success wasn't a matter of chance, it was something you had to work for, to build with your own two hands. And that's what Jamal dreams of, building something that's all his. He's been selling custom sneakers online for months now, teaching himself about business, about finance, trying to save up and learn what he can. His goal isn't just to survive the struggle, he wants to rise above it. He wants to show everyone, especially his mother, that dreams are worth chasing no matter where you start. But standing here, surrounded by the wealth and glamour of the boutique, the path to his dream seems like a mountain too steep to climb. Jamal walks further into the store, trying to focus on the mission at hand, finding the perfect gift for his mother. She's always been his biggest supporter, the one who believed in him when the world barely noticed him. She's worked tirelessly to make sure he has what he needs, even if it meant going without herself. Today, Jamal hopes to find something that will show his appreciation for all her sacrifices, a small token, something that says, "Thank you for everything." As he moves deeper into the boutique, he's careful not to get too close to the well-dressed women and men casually browsing the items. He doesn't want to draw attention. But no matter how hard he tries to blend in, it feels like every step he takes is weighed down by the feeling that he doesn't belong here. He catches sight of a beautiful handbag on display. It's the kind of purse his mother would love. A classic design, elegant and timeless. He's seen similar ones in the windows of other stores, but never in person. He moves toward it, his heart quickening with excitement, imagining the look on his mother's face when she sees it. Across the boutique, Victoria Lancaster, a woman whose very presence commands attention, watches Jamal. Her gaze lingers on him, but not in the way someone might observe an interesting person. No, her eyes are cold, calculating, dismissive, as if his very existence in the store is an inconvenience. Victoria is the epitome of wealth and old money, her outfit expensive and flawless, her posture rigid with superiority. She doesn't have to look for approval. She already knows her place in the world, and she expects others to understand it as well. Her eyes narrow slightly as they fall on Jamal, taking in his modest clothes, his youthful features, the subtle unease in his posture. She leans slightly toward the store clerk, a well-groomed woman in her 30s, and speaks just loud enough for Jamal to hear, her voice smooth with mockery. "Another one of those," she says, her lips curling into a barely perceptible smile, probably lost or just hoping to get a taste of what he can't afford. The clerk's eyes flicker toward Jamal, then quickly away, the unspoken understanding passing between them like a silent handshake. Jamal doesn't hear the words, but he feels their weight settle over him, thick and suffocating. He's been in situations like this before, where the color of his skin and the clothes on his back are all anyone can see. It's the kind of prejudice that doesn't need to be loud to be painful. It's the kind that hides behind the polite smile, the subtle glance, the assumptions that never need to be spoken to be understood. Jamal stands a little straighter, trying to ignore the sting of their judgment. He can feel his hands tense, fingers curling into fists as he fights the rising tide of anger within him. He's no stranger to being looked down on, to having people assume that he doesn't belong. But something about being in a place like this, surrounded by the opulence that feels so far out of his reach, makes it harder to ignore. He's not just an outsider. He's a nobody in their eyes, but Jamal won't let them see how deeply it cuts. Instead, he tightens his grip on his resolve, determined not to let their words define him. Jamal walks closer to the display where the handbag rests, its price tag hidden beneath the gleaming fabric. He lets his fingers hover just above it, feeling a sense of awe mixed with the weight of reality. This moment, this place, feels like a dream, one he's not sure he's allowed to touch, let alone own. He imagines his mother's face lighting up, her eyes softening with that pride she always has when he does something thoughtful for her. He takes a deep breath, finding the courage to approach the counter and speak up. The clerk, who had barely acknowledged him earlier, now straightens up, her smile returning, less genuine, more robotic. "How can I help you?" she asks, her tone cool but polite, not unlike the way she'd address a lost child in a store. Jamal clears his throat, pushing down the unease that rises in his chest. "I'd like to know the price of that handbag, please." His voice is steady, his words polite, but as soon as he speaks, he feels the air shift. Victoria, who had been walking past, pauses when she hears his question. She turns slowly, her eyes narrowing as they fall on Jamal once more. She tilts her head just slightly, studying him, a faint, almost imperceptible smirk playing at the corners of her lips. Her voice rings out loud and clear, drawing the attention of a few nearby customers. "That's adorable," she says, her words dripping with condescension. "Maybe one day, and if you work hard enough." The laughter that follows is quiet but cutting, a ripple that runs through the room. Jamal can feel their eyes on him, can feel the weight of their judgment pressing down on him, suffocating in the space between the expensive shelves and the polished floors. For a moment, the boutique feels smaller, confined to the space between him and the woman who just belittled him. His face burns, but he doesn't let his emotions show. Instead, he turns his head slightly, swallowing the bitter taste of humiliation. He's not about to let her see him falter. Not here. Not now. He turns to the clerk, trying to keep his voice steady. "Can you just tell me the price?" The clerk's expression hardens slightly, though she still maintains that polite smile. "I'm afraid that item is out of your price range," she says, the words soft but unmistakable in their disdain. Jamal wants to retort, wants to shout that they don't know him, that they don't know what he's capable of. But he bites his tongue, turning away from the counter without another word. His hand shakes just slightly, but he hides it by stuffing his hands into his pockets. He wants to run to get out of the suffocating air, but there's something inside him, something fierce that refuses to leave without making a statement. His mother's voice echoes in his mind. "Your success is the best response." He holds his head high, walking toward the exit, the sound of Victoria's mocking laugh lingering in the air like an unwelcome echo. Jamal's steps are steady as he walks toward the door, but inside his mind is racing. He can feel the eyes of the other customers on him, the judgment still hanging in the air like a thick fog. It's not just Victoria. It's everyone. The eye, clerk's polite dismissal, the subtle shift in the room when he entered, all of it. It's a constant reminder that in this world, there's a place for people like him. Just not here. The store clerk doesn't meet his eyes as he passes her, but he can feel her gaze follow him, like she's watching for any misstep. The flicker of disinterest in her expression is enough to tell him what he already knows. He's invisible to her, not in a way that makes him feel forgotten, but in a way that makes him feel small, unworthy of even basic human decency. She's not rude. She's not overtly hostile, but the indifference is sharp like 1,000 paper cuts at once. It's the kind of silent discrimination that doesn't require loud insults or visible hostility to sting. It's the kind that leaves you questioning if you really belong anywhere. As Jamal reaches for the door, he takes one last look back at the handbag, now just a distant image in his mind. He doesn't let himself linger, doesn't allow the weight of his humiliation to stop him from walking out. But he can't shake the feeling that he's been reduced to nothing more than an afterthought in the eyes of the people around him. His dreams, his aspirations, they all seem so distant now, so out of reach. As the door swings shut behind him, he lets out a breath he didn't know he was holding, stepping out into the street where the cool air feels like a relief. For a moment he stands there, just breathing, the noise of the city rushing around him. But he doesn't let the moment defeat him. No matter how deep the sting of their judgment cuts, he refuses to let it consume him. Maybe one day, if you work hard enough, Victoria's words echo in his mind, and for a moment, the humiliation feels like a weight too heavy to bear. But then something shifts inside him. A quiet resolve. A fire that grows a little brighter. This isn't the end of his story, it's just the beginning. He takes a deep breath, straightening his posture, and walks forward. He won't forget this moment. But it won't define him either. Jamal doesn't speak a word as he walks down the street, his sneakers tapping lightly against the pavement. The bustle of the city is louder now, the honking horns, the murmur of voices, the chatter of people going about their day. But all of it feels distant, like he's in a world of his own. His mind is still heavy with what happened back in the boutique. Victoria's laughter, the way the clerk barely looked at him, their words, they're still fresh, gnawing at him. He wants to scream, to shout that he deserves more, that he's worth more than the way they saw him. But he doesn't. He can't. Instead, Jamal keeps walking, his head low but not defeated. His hands are shoved deep into his pockets, and his heart is heavy with a mix of anger and frustration. He's been told all his life that people like him don't belong in spaces like that there's a ceiling on what he can achieve, that his dreams are too big, too impossible. But he's not willing to accept that. Not now, not ever. As he walks, he thinks back to his mother's words, the ones that always comforted him in the toughest moments. People will judge you before they know you, but your success is the best response. Her words are a lifeline, a reminder that how people treat him doesn't define his worth. They may not see him for who he really is, but that's not his problem. He knows what he's capable of. He knows that the way they looked at him today is nothing but a reflection of their own ignorance. It's a reflection of their fear of someone who doesn't fit the mold, someone who's willing to break barriers and rise above the limits they've set. Jamal thinks about his small business, about the custom sneakers he's been selling online. It's not much, but it's his. It's his dream, his way of building something for himself, something that doesn't rely on anyone else's approval. Every time he makes a sale, every time he learns something new about business, it's a step closer to something bigger, something more than what they see in him right now. His fingers tighten in his pockets, the fabric of his hoodie crinkling under his grip. He's been overlooked his whole life, treated like he doesn't matter, like his dreams are a joke. But what they don't know is that he's been quietly learning, growing, and building in the background. They don't know that the boy they mocked is going to be the one who proves them all wrong. His resolve hardens and he starts to walk faster with purpose now. Each step is a promise to himself. I'll make it. I'll show them. And when I do, They'll remember my name. He doesn't know how yet. He doesn't know the exact path or how long it will take. But one thing he knows for sure. He's not going to let their prejudice stop him. Not today, not ever. As he reaches the corner of the street, Jamal stops for a moment. He looks up at the sky, the city skyline stretching high above him, full of possibilities. He takes a deep breath, the air filling his lungs, and for the first time since he stepped into that boutique, he feels something else. Not the sting of rejection, not the weight of their judgment, but the spark of something stronger. Determination. Jamal doesn't look back as he walks away from the boutique. It's almost like he can feel the weight of Victoria's laughter still hanging in the air, a faint echo that he can't escape. But he refuses to let it follow him. Every step away from that store is a step toward something greater, something more than the narrow world they want him to fit into. The streets are alive with movement, cars, buses, people rushing to their destinations. But Jamal moves through it all with a quiet focus. He doesn't feel lost in the chaos of the city anymore. No, this time he feels like he's on a path. It's a path that's his alone, and every moment is leading him closer to the life he knows he's meant for. As he passes a corner store, he sees a group of kids hanging out on the sidewalk, laughing, joking, doing what kids do. For a moment, he's reminded of his own neighborhood, the people he's grown up with. His mother, his friends, all the familiar faces. They know what it's like to fight for every scrap of dignity, to have the world assume you'll never amount to much, just because of where you come from. But Jamal is different. He feels different today. The sting of humiliation hasn't vanished, but it's no longer controlling him. It's been replaced by something else, a quiet fire that burns inside him, pushing him forward. He knows that there are walls in front of him, walls built by people who think he doesn't belong. But he's not afraid of those walls. He's going to break them down. He doesn't know when or how he'll do it. But he knows one thing for sure: this is just the beginning. The day is fading into evening, the streetlights flickering on as the sun dips behind the horizon. Jamal keeps walking, his pace steady and sure. He's not running from anything, he's running toward something. And though the boutique's glass doors are far behind him, the words of that woman, Victoria, remain in his mind. Maybe one day, if you work hard enough. One day. Jamal smiles to himself as he steps onto the bus. The doors close behind him, but his resolve is unwavering. He may have left the boutique behind, but he knows that one day he'll walk back into that world on his own terms. And when he does, they'll remember his name.